Welcome to the Deep Dive, the Theopoetics Edition. We are Dr. Aaron Waldron, founder and CEO of Corvus Cantus, a theopoetic publishing house and creation of Lost Raven Studios. What you're hearing right now is an expansion. The original Deep Dive podcast has been a space shaped and supported by AI, a place where ideas are explored, questions are sharpened, and insight is generated through emerging technology. But this edition marks a widening of that circle. Through our partnership between Corvus Cantus and the Deep Dive podcast, the Theopoetics Edition becomes a threshold space, where artificial intelligence meets sacred imagination, where technology intersects with myth, poetry, theology, and embodied reflection. Here we focus intentionally on theopoetics. We teach, we inform, we remember, we draw from Theopoetics and the publishings of Corvus Cantus, the books, the dialogues, the voices inhabiting the liminal spaces between doubt and devotion, critique and creativity. This is not systematic theology. This is not rigid dogma. This is theology felt, spoken, questioned, reimagined. In a meta-modern age, where we oscillate between irony and sincerity, fragmentation and hope, Theopoetics offers a way forward, not by resolving tension, but by inhabiting it. So whether you are a writer, a seeker, a scholar, or simply someone holding an old smelly box of inherited beliefs, this space is for you. Welcome to the Deep Dive, Theopoetics Edition. Let's begin.
Let's play a quick mental game here. I want you to close your eyes and just picture the year 1968. Just for a second. What do you see?
Mostly chaos.
Right. I mean, it's a year where the entire world feels like it's physically shaking.
Yeah.
You've got the student riots in Paris literally tearing up the cobblestones.
Yeah.
You have the Black Power movement completely reshaping the civil rights conversation in America.
And the Vietnam War on everyone's TV screens.
Exactly. Plus, post-colonial struggles just erupting across the global South.
It was a moment of total convergence. Like everything was happening everywhere all at once.
Yeah. And amidst all this noise, there is this prevailing idea in the West.
Yeah.
You know, in the universities and the government halls, this idea that the third world is just a problem to be solved.
Right. A place on a map.
It's poverty. It's a statistic. But today we are taking a deep dive into a text that flips that map entirely upside down.
We're looking at A Theology of Human Hope by Rubem A. Alves. And to your point, Alves argues that in the late 60s, the third world wasn't just a geography, it was a voice.
The very loud voice.
A furious, intelligent voice that was absolutely done with being polite.
So we have a really specific mission for this deep dive. We are going to unpack how Alves, who is a Brazilian intellectual writing his PhD dissertation at Princeton, of all places, uses the tools of Western philosophy to dismantle the West's own narrative.
It's a brilliant strategy.
We're going to look at what he calls the oppressed consciousness and how a person or a nation wakes up from it. And then the really uncomfortable part, why helping people might actually be the most effective way to keep them enslaved.
Yeah, it's a heavy text, but it is incredibly sharp. Harvey Cox is the famous theologian who wrote the foreword, and he describes Alves as a brilliant, angry Latin American intellectual.
And that anger isn't just noise, right?
No, it's very precise. Cox points out that Alves is basically raiding the armory of the oppressor. He's taking European theology and German philosophy and using those very weapons to forge a theology of revolution.
I just love that image.
Yeah.
Stealing the master's tools to dismantle the master's house. So looking at our stack of notes here, we've got three main pillars to get through today.
Right.
First, we have to figure out the difference between reacting like an animal and responding like a human. Second, the new community. And I will warn you now, the group of people Alves thinks can save the world is not who you expect.
Definitely not. It's a very strange coalition.
And finally, the villain of the story, a concept he calls technologism, which frankly is going to feel like a personal attack on anyone listening to this on a smartphone right now.
It is going to be a hard pill to swallow, but we will get there.
So let's start at the foundation, segment 1, the nature of man. Alves starts with a really basic, almost deceptive question. What does it mean to be human?
Right.
And to answer that, he draws a line between a human being and a camera.
It's a great analogy. He's really attacking this classical philosophical idea of the monad.
Okay, pause. Define monad for us, because that sounds like sci-fi jargon.
Sure. So in philosophy, think of a monad like a marble. Yeah, a self-contained unit. It's hard. It's finished. It has no windows or doors. It doesn't really interact with the inside of other marble. It just bumps into them. Alves says man is not a monad. Man is not a finished product.
So we aren't marbles.
We aren't marbles. If you take a camera and you snap a photo of a landscape, the camera captures the data. It records the light. But the camera doesn't change.
It's just glass and metal.
Exactly. It doesn't feel the landscape.
Okay.
And the landscape doesn't change because the camera looked at it. They are completely alien to each other. The camera is just reacting. It's a passive observer.
So in Alves' view, if we just move through life reacting to stimuli, eating when hungry, sleeping when tired, working because the boss said so, we aren't actually being human. We're just cameras with a pulse.
That's exactly it. We are remaining in what he calls the biological sphere. We are just animals adjusting to an environment. To be truly human, Alves argues you have to move from reaction to response.
But response implies a dialogue, right? Like someone speaks to you and you speak back.
It implies agency. When you respond to the world, you aren't just looking at it. You see the world as a challenge addressed specifically to you. And when you act on that challenge, two things happen simultaneously. You change the reality around you, and that action actually changes who you are.
It's reciprocal.
Completely reciprocal. You stop being a static object or a thing, and you become a historical subject. You are making history, not just suffering it.
This ties directly into that section on language, which I found absolutely fascinating. He talks about how language isn't just a tool for describing things. It's a tool for creating the future.
Yes.
He uses this metaphor of adolescent language versus adult language.
It's this beautiful but slightly chaotic metaphor. Just think about what it's actually like to be an adolescent.
A total nightmare.
An absolute nightmare. It was a crisis. You are breaking away from your parents. You are questioning all the rules you grew up with. You are trying to figure out who you are separate from them.
Right.
So Alves says the language of an adolescent is like a river. It's fluid. It's plastic. They are inventing new slang, discarding old words, twisting meanings. It's a language of search.
Because they haven't found the answer yet. They're still looking.
Right. Now contrast that with adult language.
Which I assume is the language of someone who has a mortgage of 401k and is generally just tired.
Basically. But philosophically, the adult represents someone who has fit into the structure of society. They've accepted the rules.
They're settled.
They've stopped searching because they found their slot. So their language becomes stabilized. It freezes. It's very efficient for giving orders or doing business, but it's not alive in the sense of creating something new.
So if we apply this to the oppressed consciousness, the people, this source material is actually about Alves, is saying that oppression forces people into silence or into adult language.
Both, really. When a group is dominated, they are forced to use the language of the master. They can't speak their own truth. They have to use the stabilized language of the status quo.
But when that consciousness begins to wake up,
when a revolution starts simmering, the first thing that happens is the birth of a new language.
a new vocabulary just to describe their reality.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And this new language does something very dangerous. It separates the new community from the old one. It creates a boundary.
Meaning.
It signals that this group has a new vocation, a new purpose that the old society cannot understand. It's the first sign that the status quo is about to break. It's messy, it's loud, it's adolescent, but it is alive.
Which brings us perfectly to segment 2. Who is this community? Who is actually speaking this new language?
Right.
Now, Alves uses a term here that usually summons images of factory workers in 19th century Russia. He says the world proletariat.
Yeah, if you're a Marxist scholar, you hear proletariat and you immediately think industrial working class. But Alves does something really radical here. He expands the definition entirely. He calls it an ecumenical phenomenon.
Ecumenical usually means bringing different faiths together.
Here he means bringing distinct societal groups together under one umbrella. He identifies 3 specific demographics that on the surface look like they have absolutely nothing in common.
Okay, let's hear them.
Group 1 is the nations of the Third World, the poor developing countries struggling against colonialism.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
That fits the traditional idea of the oppressed.
Group 2 is Black people in the United States. And remember, he's writing this in the late 60s, specifically referencing the shift from the integration movement to Black power.
Right.
He sees that as a shift from asking to be let into the system to wanting to change the system itself.
Okay, so those two fit the mold. You have marginalized people, often poor, often racial minorities.
Mm-hmm.
But the third group, I had to read this twice when I was prepping. I thought it was a typo.
The third group is university students in affluent nations.
The rich kids.
The rich kids, the ones at Berkeley, at the Sorbonne, at Columbia.
So, help me out here. You have a peasant in Brazil who might be starving. You have a black activist in Chicago fighting systemic racism. And you have a wealthy 20-year-old student in a library who has never missed a meal.
Yes.
What is the common thread? Because it certainly isn't money.
No, and that is the key insight. The common denominator isn't poverty at all, it's impotence.
Impotence.
Alves argues that all three of these groups share a fundamental experience. They are not the subjects of their own history. They are objects in someone else's narrative.
I actually have a quote here regarding the students. He writes that in these modern societies, universities are seen as factories. They produce technicians to service the bureaucracy. The students feel like they are trapped in a game in which all the rules have been made up by someone else.
Exactly. Imagine being that student. You have food, you have shelter, you have privilege, but you realize that you are just a cog being ground down to fit into a machine you didn't build.
Serve a purpose you don't even believe in.
Right. That realization that you have no real power to shape your own destiny is a form of oppression. Alves calls it a colonialism of the mind.
Colonialism of the mind. That is a really striking phrase. We usually think of colonialism as maps and borders and armies occupying territory.
Alves goes much deeper. He says the essence of colonialism isn't just the soldier on the corner, it's the relationship where the dominated person is reduced to reflexiveness.
Going back to the camera analogy.
Exactly. Just reacting. If you are colonized, you only react to what the master does. The master acts, you adjust. You don't plan your own future because your future already belongs to the master.
Wow.
Whether you are a peasant on a plantation or a student in a massive bureaucratic university system, someone else holds the pen that writes your life story.
This actually explains a really controversial point he makes about the stereotype of the lazy native. You know that old colonial trope that the poor are just lazy and that's why they're poor?
That's a terrible stereotype, but Alves completely flips it on its head. He says, look at the context. If you have absolutely no power to plan your future, if the system is rigged so that your hard work doesn't actually change your circumstances, then laziness is actually a rational response.
It's a defense mechanism.
It's a refusal to participate in your own exploitation. Why work hard to build a house that someone else can just take away?
So this inaction is actually a form of unconscious protest.
It's the body saying no before the mouth even knows how to say it.
So we have these groups, the Third Worlds of the Black Power movement, the students, all realizing they are stuck in this reflexive state. They're being managed by the powers that be.
Yes.
And naturally, the adults in the room, the wealthy nations, say, okay, we see you're struggling. Let us help. Let us send aid. Let's fix the problem. And this leads us to segment 3, the trap of aid.
This is where Alves gets very prickly and very counterintuitive. He says stop, because help is often a weapon.
I mean, that's a pretty cynical take, though, right? Like, we're sending food and medicine. How is that a weapon?
It is about agency. Alves argues that traditional aid programs often impose mutism, silence.
Okay.
Think about it. If I come into your community and I build the roads and I give you the tractors and I tell you how to farm, I am providing goods, but I am denying you the right to be the author of your own advancement.
There's the difference between teaching a kid to ride a bike and just driving them everywhere. The kid gets to the destination, sure, but they never learn balance. They just become dependent.
And in a geopolitical context, it's about control. If I provide the solution, I define the future. Alves actually quotes Pope Paul VI here from the encyclical Popularum Progressio.
What did he say?
The Pope wrote, "Man is only truly man when he is the master of his own acts. So if you feed a man but keep him in political chains, you haven't humanized him, you've just fed a slave."
So if help is a trap because it keeps you passive, how does the oppressed group actually break free? Like, what is the very first step of the revolution?
The first step is negation.
Just saying
A
no.
loud, unequivocal no. You have to look at your present situation, even if it has some comforts, even if it has rules that make sense, and say, this is unacceptable. You have to destroy the closed present to open up the possibility of a future.
He brings in Frantz Fanon here, the psychiatrist and revolutionary thinker, and this gets pretty intense. Fanon doesn't shy away from the concept of violence.
No, he doesn't. And we need to be clear here. Alves isn't necessarily calling for blood in the streets as a primary goal, but he is analyzing the psychology of violence. Fanon describes violence by the oppressed as a refusal of the animal condition.
That ties right back to the camera and animal versus human distinction from the beginning.
Exactly. If the system treats you like a thing, like an animal to be herded, then fighting back even physically is a way of proving to yourself that you are a person. You are asserting your will against the master. It is a claim to dignity.
Wow.
Alves posits that hope is actually the child of negation.
You can't hope for a new future until you have completely rejected the present one.
You have to burn the bridge to build the boat. If you are still trying to tweak the current system, you aren't really free. You're just negotiating the terms of your captivity.
Okay, so we have the hero of the story, the free subject who says no and starts to build a new history. But every story needs a final boss. And Alves identifies a force that is actively trying to sedate us all. He calls it technologism.
And I have to say, for a book written over 50 years ago, this section feels incredibly prophetic. It feels like he wrote it yesterday.
He distinguishes between technology, like the actual tools, and technologism, which is more like a religion.
Right. Technologism is the belief that engineering can solve all human problems. Hunger, just build better tractors.
Yeah.
War, better communications, unhappiness, better pills.
It's the belief that reality is just a set of technical problems waiting for a technical fix.
Precisely.
There is this amazing section where he quotes a letter from Mark Twain to Walt Whitman. I have to read part of this because it is so incredibly optimistic, it almost hurts to read it with modern eyes.
It's quite the letter.
Twain is writing about the wonders of the 19th century. He says, "You have seen the steam press, the electric light, the sewing machine, the application of anesthesia to surgery, whereby the ancient dominion of pain came to an end on this earth forever."
The ancient dominion of pain came to an end. That is a very bold claim.
He keeps going. He predicts a formidable result, that because of these machines, man will reach his full stature. He basically thinks technology is going to turn us into gods.
And that is exactly the technological messiah that Alves warns against.
But let's play devil's advocate for a second. Who wouldn't want anesthesia and electric lights? Why is this a trap? I quite like anesthesia.
We all do. It's not the light bulb that's the trap, it's the ideology. Alves, drawing on thinkers like Herbert Marcuse, argues that this technological comfort comes at a terrible price.
What's the price?
Technology delivers the goods. It makes us comfortable, fat, and happy. But in doing so, it makes opposition socially useless.
Socially useless. Unpack that.
Think about Marcuse's concept of the one-dimensional man. If the system feeds you, entertains you, keeps you warm, and gives you a steady stream of dopamine, why would you ever rebel? Why would you say no?
You wouldn't. You'd just scroll to the next video.
Exactly. It creates a happy consciousness. You lose the ability to think critically or to imagine a different way of living because the current way is just so pleasant. You are in a cage, but it's a really, really nice cage with high-speed internet and climate control.
So Alves says history comes to an end, not because we solved everything, but because nobody wants to change anything anymore. We just want the next update.
We become objects again. Happy objects, but objects nonetheless. We aren't creating history, we are just consuming it. We are back to being the camera, just taking pictures of a comfortable life.
Okay, so if technologism is the false messiah, the one that domesticates us, what is the true messiah? What actually liberates us?
Alves calls it political humanism.
Now, political is a loaded word. People hear that and they immediately think of voting booths and arguing on the internet.
He doesn't mean partisan politics. He redefines politics as the practice of freedom.
The practice of freedom.
Yes. For Alves, technology runs on logic. If X, then Y. It's predictable. Politics is about the unknown. It's about human will. It is the risk man takes to create a future that logic absolutely does not guarantee.
He actually twists a Bible verse here, right? Seek first the kingdom of politics.
And his power and all these things shall be yours. He's saying, don't wait for the machine to fix your life. Don't wait for the experts to design a better future for you. You have to step into the arena, the political arena, and shape the future yourself.
Even if it's scary.
Especially if it's scary.
Because freedom is inherently risky. If you are writing your own history, you might write a tragedy.
Freedom is the absence of a guarantee, and that's what makes it human.
So let's zoom out and look at the whole arc we've covered today.
Yeah.
We started with the reflexive life, the oppressed person, the camera, the student in the factory who just takes what is given.
Right.
And we moved to the critical life, the person who says no, who learns a new language, and who rejects the false comfort of the cage.
It's a journey from passivity to activity, from being an object to being a subject.
And that leaves us with a pretty provocative thought to chew on. Mark Twain predicted that technology would lead to the formidable result: man at his full stature, free from pain. But Alves suggests we might just end up as well-fed pets in a technological system, incapable of imagining anything else.
The question Alves forces us to ask is, are we living in Twain's dream, or are we slipping into Alves's nightmare? And if it is the nightmare, do we have the courage to practice the negation he talks about?
Can you say no to the comfort? That's the truly hard part. The source material suggests that humanization only happens when we reject the logic of facts, the way things are right now, and create a new logic of freedom.
It is about becoming the subject of your own history, not tomorrow, but today.
So don't just react to this deep dive. Respond to it. Think about the cages in your own life. Thanks for listening.
See you next time.